Let's learn project management in the most interesting and fun way possible, because Project Management 101 or Project Management Basics sounds boring, right? Textbooks, definitions, frameworks, certifications. Most people think project management is this complex corporate beast that only applies to office environments and construction sites. However, here is the truth that nobody tells you. You have probably already managed dozens of successful projects in your life without even realizing it. For example, that weekend road trip you planned with your friends from London to Paris, that was a project. That birthday party you organized last year, that was a project. That home renovation and smart home you built and coordinated, yep, that was a project too. See, a project is simply a temporary endeavor with a defined beginning and a defined end, okay? And the goal of the project is to deliver a specific outcome or value upon completion. And every single one of those experiences you have had follows the exact same 5 phases that professional project managers use to deliver multi-million-dollar projects in the corporate world. So in this video today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 fundamental phases of project management using a real-life example that probably many of you have experienced or are planning to experience very soon. So this will be our project case study, okay? We are going to plan a safe and successful road trip with friends from London to Paris, crossing the English Channel on a ferry from Dover. And through this one practical case study, you will understand what project initiation means, how planning actually works, what execution looks like on the ground, why monitoring and controlling is critical, and how to properly close out a project. Because you know what? Learning project management should be fun. So let's get started. So let's start with phase 1, project initiation. Now, every project begins with an idea, right? And in our case, someone in our buddy group probably said, hey, let's do a road trip from London to Paris. It will be exciting and full of experiences. That's your project trigger or project mandate, okay? However, before you jump into booking ferries and packing your bags, you need to answer a few critical questions during the initiation phase. Firstly, why are we doing this trip? Is it to celebrate someone's birthday, taking a break from work, or just to create memorable experiences with friends? That's your project's business justification, or what we call as the outline business case in corporate project management language, okay? Let's say for this case study, it's Jane's birthday and Jane is one of our friends. Next, who is actually going? You need to identify your project team. Are there 4 friends? Do we have 5 friends? Does everyone have valid passports and visas? Can everyone afford it? This is your initial stakeholder identification and team formation. Make sense? Then comes the feasibility check. Do we have enough budget? Can we really take time off from work? Are ferry bookings available for our dates? Is the car that we plan to use, is it roadworthy for a long journey? These are your initial feasibility assessments that determine whether this project is even viable, right? See, project initiation is all about asking the right questions upfront before committing resources, okay? Because a poorly initiated project is bound to fail even before it starts. Also, it's critical for you at this stage to define the start and the end points of the project, okay? For example, your project in this case will end once you have reached Paris safely. That's the end point. Anything which is planned in Paris after that is out of scope. The travel back to London, it is also out of scope, okay? Very important. So what you really do at the end of this initiation phase is to write up a document which will have all those details that we have discussed right now. And it needs to be signed by your project sponsor. And in this case, it might be Jane, who, let's say, is funding most part of the budget because she is the birthday girl, right? So this document, which Jane authorizes, is called the project charter, and it is literally where a project is born. Alright, now let's move on to phase 2, project planning. So you have decided to go on this road trip. Okay, fine. However, now you need to plan every single detail to ensure nothing goes wrong. So let's break this down. Firstly, route planning. This is a big part of your project scope, okay? So you are going from London to Dover, catching a ferry across the English Channel, and then driving to Paris. That's your scope boundary, okay? You are not driving to Amsterdam or Brussels, you are only going to Paris, not taking the flight or taking the Eurostar railway. So a clear scope definition prevents scope creep later, okay? And it is important for you as a project manager to set the boundaries of that scope of the project. Next, budget breakdown. How much this trip will cost? Car hire, fuel from London to Dover and from Dover to Paris, ferry tickets, your accommodation in Paris, food, tolls, parking, and maybe some emergency buffer as well, right? This is your project budget and your overall cost management plan. Because without this, you will overspend, right? And Jane, as the project sponsor, needs to pick up the majority of this chunk, right? So it's your job as the project manager to get her aligned with how much it will cost and what will be the funding strategy as well. So for example, let's say Jane picks up 80% of the project cost and the rest of the 20% is split and shared between you and other friends in the team. Then comes schedule creation. When are we leaving? What time is the ferry booked? When do we reach Paris? What could be the potential delays on the road? This is your project timeline. Now, here is the critical part most project managers skip or miss, okay? Risk identification. So for example, what could go wrong? Car breakdown, a flat tire, ferry delays due to weather, traffic jams on the highway, running out of cash. You as the project manager need contingency plans or workarounds for each of these identified risks, okay? Finally, stakeholder communication. Who needs to know about this trip? Your family, your manager at your workplace? Have you got your leave approvals? Your accommodation host in Paris? Are they aware of your arrival time? Etc. etc. So make sure you plan that, because proper communication prevents a lot of surprises which can negatively affect your project at a later stage. Now let's talk about phase 3, project execution. And this is where your planning gets tested in real life, because the rubber hits the road, okay? So the day of execution arrives. You have loaded the car, everyone has gathered at the meeting point, and now you are actually driving from London towards Dover. This is project execution in action, where all your planning converts into actual deliverables, right? So the first thing, team coordination becomes extremely critical, okay? Who is driving the first leg? Who is navigating using the GPS? Who is managing the music playlist? Who is tracking expenses? So in project management terms, this is resource allocation and task assignment. Everyone needs clarity on their role during the execution stage. Makes sense? Now, as you hit the motorway towards Dover, you are following your planned route, okay? That's scope execution. You are not randomly taking detours or changing destinations midway, okay? Because that would be scope creep. You are delivering exactly what has been expected by you as a project manager to deliver during the execution stage. Then comes the ferry crossing from Dover. So you arrive at the port, you check in, you board the ferry, cross the English Channel, and disembark at Port Calais. So each of these steps is a project milestone getting completed sequentially. That's a finish to start relationship between tasks in a project. See, execution is all about systematic delivery of planned activities, okay? Now, once you are in France, congratulations, you drive towards Paris following your GPS from Port Calais. You stop for fuel as planned, you might take a bio break as planned, and finally you reach your accommodation. That's project execution, delivering the core objective and creating a tangible value for you and your team members, which in this case is reaching Paris safely and creating amazing memories with friends along the journey, right? However, on the other side of the spectrum, execution rarely goes 100% according to plan, okay? Which brings us to the next critical phase. Now moving on to phase 4, monitoring and controlling, which actually kicks off a bit later after execution starts, because obviously you need some progress to be demonstrated before you even monitor it, right? However, after that, the monitoring and controlling phase continues simultaneously with execution, okay? See, as you are driving towards Dover from London, you are constantly monitoring your progress. Are we on schedule? Is the fuel consumption as expected? Are we staying within budget? That's real-time project monitoring, right? However, let's take it, things rarely go perfectly. Maybe there is an unexpected traffic jam on the motorway, or let's say the ferry gets delayed by an hour or so due to weather, or someone falls sick. So this is where the controlling part kicks in. You need to make quick decisions, adjust your plans, communicate the changes to your stakeholders, and find solutions and workarounds as a project manager. Make sense? For instance, as an extreme example, if the ferry is delayed by, let's say, more than 8 hours due to bad weather across the English Channel, do you wait? Do you stay over the night in Dover and rebook the ferry the day after? Do you need to adjust your accommodation check-in time in Paris? These are the change management decisions that every project manager faces during project execution. And it's extremely critical here for you as a project manager to keep your project sponsor updated on every change and every decision making, which in our case is our birthday girl, Jane. So the key skill during monitoring and controlling phase is to stay flexible and agile while keeping your core objective intact, which is to reach Paris safely, to reach there on time as much as reasonably practicable, and on budget, okay? Finally, phase 5, project closeout. Let's say the weather across the English Channel cleared out within a couple of hours and the ferry departed only a couple of hours late. You have crossed the English Channel safely and you have reached your booked accommodation in Paris safely, within budget, however with some minor delays, which our birthday girl Jane didn't really mind, okay? So then the project objective is achieved, right? However, the project isn't officially closed until you have completed a few final steps, okay? Firstly, to confirm the deliverables. Did everyone reach Paris safely? Is the accommodation as expected? Are you within budget for the fuel and the conveyance costs? These are the deliverable verifications which are done during the closeout stage of a project. Make sense? Next comes lessons learned. You gather your team that evening. What went well? Maybe your route planning was not really perfect. What could have improved? Perhaps you underestimated the motorway traffic or the ferry waiting time. Maybe you forgot to check the weather forecast across the English Channel. You document these insights for future road trips, and this document is called the lessons learned register, okay? Then you close out the financials. You reconcile all the expenses, fuel costs, ferry tickets, tolls, who owes what. So you settle all the accounts with your team members, and the final sign off from our birthday girl Jane, who is our project sponsor. Finally, you thank everyone for their contribution towards making this trip successful. That's team appreciation and formal project closure. So guys, those were the 5 fundamental phases of project management explained through a simple road trip from London to Paris. Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closeout. See, project management isn't rocket science, okay? It's common sense with some systematic frameworks applied to ensure successful delivery. Now, whether you are planning a wedding or launching a product or building a house, these 5 phases remain exactly the same. The scale changes, the complexity might increase or decrease. However, the framework stays constant, okay? Now, if you want to dive deeper into project management fundamentals and learn how to apply these concepts professionally in your career, check out my Project Management Basics course on Udemy. It covers all the foundational elements you need to become a successful project manager, with real-world examples and practical insights and applications. You will find the link in the description section below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next video.